Let me tell you a story. About 3 days ago, I was sitting in my beanbag and I was reading this book called the No Self, No Problem Workbook. And this is a great book, highly recommended. Basically, it talks about how our image of ourselves, what we think of ourselves, the story that we tell about ourselves is an illusion, that is just an abstraction, that it has no real substance to it. And it also talks about how our thoughts, our memories, the stories that we tell ourselves are the source of most of our mental suffering. And the thing is that they are also just an abstraction. They do not represent reality as it is. That they are just how we interpret reality. Thoughts, memories, and all of this stuff is just our brain, more specifically the left side of our brain, trying to interpret reality, put reality ever changing, constantly in a flux, like unexplainable reality. It's trying to put it into words, which is impossible. It's trying to make sense of the world in stories, in thoughts, in words, in language. And these are just abstractions, detached from reality. They do not represent reality as it is. For example, memories, they do not represent reality. They are only how we think things happen. They are only how we interpret those events, not actually how those events played out. And it's just the same with thoughts and the stories that we tell ourselves. Most of the time they are just bullshit, wrong assumptions. And it talks about how we categorize things as bad or as unforgivable, and how most of the time these categorizations are wrong, and they are also just abstractions. And when we put some light on these categorizations, when we question these thoughts, when we question the stories that we tell ourselves, and we don't take it that seriously, we can realize that these bad events are not even bad, or we just don't know. And that's just how our mind categorized it. And everything might be just fine, but still, our mind might think of it as a problem. But when we question it, we might just realize that there is no problem. And we can even be grateful for these bad situations. And it also gave some examples in the book how most of the time, when we thought that something was horrible, it actually turned out to be a good thing. I mean, you can probably relate to this. For example, you didn't get into the school that you wanted to. And at that time, you might thought that that was horrible. But maybe the other school that you got into, that's where you met your future wife. So you can't really know if that the thing that happened to you is good or bad, because you just don't know what's going to happen, what's going to come out of that. And then after that, you asked a harder question. It asked the question, is there something happening right now you categorize as bad, but perhaps you're wrong? Can you think of 3 ways to be grateful for it? Basically, if there's something happening to you right now that you think it's horrible, but actually it might turn out to be a great thing that happened to you. And as I'm thinking there about this question, this thought came up to me that my problem, or the thing that is bad right now, is that I'm not getting enough views on YouTube, that I'm not growing on YouTube. And then I thought to myself that I'm just not ready. I realized this, that I'm not ready. I still got a lot to improve and a lot to learn, and I'm not ready yet to influence so many people. And that this is like my training ground to get better at speaking, get better at making videos, to learn about more stuff. And I also realized that my expectations were just too high. They were unrealistic. Like, I only started 7-8 months ago making videos. Like, what do I expect? My videos are not that great yet. Of course you're not gonna get a bunch of views. And this just hit me so hard. The problem just dissolved. And I was also just grateful for the fact that I can do this, that I can learn and talk about it and actually help some people, and that this teaches me discipline to do it even when no one's watching, to just do it for the sake of it. And I actually like it a lot making these videos, and I was just grateful for that too. This experience was so interesting. It was like my problem just dissolved. Not growing on YouTube just wasn't a problem anymore. And then immediately I grabbed my phone so that I can write this down to the video ideas. And this is exactly what I wrote. Tell the story in another way. Your problem right now not growing, I'm not ready yet recording YouTube. Like I wrote this down to my like video ideas list so that make sure I don't forget it. And it just made me realize, like it hit me so hard that how rarely I question my thoughts and my beliefs and the stories that I tell myself. Like, do you see that just by questioning the thought that this is a problem, I got rid of it. So in this video I'm going to tell you the lessons that I learned from this book, how you can change your attitude towards your problem just like that, most of the time. And we're actually going to walk through the exact practice I did in the story that I told you. We're going to do that together. So hopefully this video will be helpful. Now the main idea is to not blindly trust your thoughts and the stories that you tell yourself, and to question them, to look at it from another perspective, to tell the story in a different way, and to not identify with your thoughts, to realize that you are not your thoughts. I mean, this might sound simple, really this is it. It might sound simple, but it is very powerful. Now the chapter in the book starts off by talking about this Japanese practice called Kintsukuroi, which is basically this art form where people repair broken objects by focusing on the flaws of that object and turning those flaws into something positive. For example, practitioners of this practice would take broken pottery, a broken bowl for example, and piece it back together with this tree sap that is like mixed with gold dust, very beautiful. And they glue it back together with that tree sap, and the final product looks way better than the original bowl before it was broken. I'm gonna put here some pictures, like they actually look like pretty cool. And the idea is that these flaws are often not even flaws, that they can be turned into something great, something positive. This art really shakes up the mind's rigidity when it comes to categorizing something as bad forever. Because often in life, something we thought of as bad or negative turned out to be one of the best things that has happened to us, and we would never change it. And you can probably relate to this. You might have had some similar experience to this. And right now, let's actually do a practice from the book together. I'm going to read it from the book, what we have to do, and then we'll do it together. So this is how the practice goes. Find something in your past that at the time you were convinced was horrible. Think of the days, weeks, and years that followed this event or time in your life. What kind of metaphorical tree sap did you use to glue things back together? What gold dust made the brokenness whole again and more beautiful than before? Would you change things if you could? Even if the answer is yes, there are no doubt many ways in which your current experience is beautiful in its brokenness and in its wholeness. That is part of what it means to be a human. Was there any way in which the past terrible thing made your life more meaningful? Do you have gratitude for this event or its aftermath? Now you can pause the video right now and think about these questions. And I really recommend doing these practices because it was when I did this practice and the next practice that we're going to do, that's when it like really hit me, the power of this. So you can pause the video now, think about these questions, write them down, and I'll see you then. Now hopefully you got your answer, and I thought back to a time when I was younger and I wanted to go to some kind of party with my classmates or something like that, and my parents wouldn't let me go there. And I remember back then I was so frustrated about it. I thought that, man, I'm gonna miss out on this thing, it's so horrible. But looking back, I mean, what were we going to do there really? We were just going to drink a bunch. Like, I'm so glad that they didn't actually let me. I'm so grateful that I didn't go to those kind of parties. And those parties that didn't influence me and take me in into a negative direction. So I'm very grateful for that. And it's very interesting that back then it was such a horrible thing, and now I'm so grateful for it. And I'm actually really interested about what you came up with. You can leave it in the comments. I'm very interested to read them. Now it's easier to do this Kintsukuroi on the events from your past, like looking back at it. It's easier to see how it turned out to be actually a good thing. But now this next practice that we're going to do is going to be a bit more difficult. So this is how the next practice goes like. It sounds like this. Can you find something in your life right now to which you can apply this kind of tender repair? Is there something happening for you right now that you have categorized as bad, but perhaps you are wrong? Can you think of 3 ways to be grateful for it right now? And once you thought about this, once you have some kind of answer to this question, you can go on and watch the rest of the video. So you can pause right now and think about these questions. Now, once you got the answer to the previous questions, think about the next following questions. How does this change the experience of thinking about this event in your mind? Can you put a little space between the feelings that come up and your sense of self? Can you entertain the idea that your relationship to this event will continue to change as you stay in the present moment and not the past or the future? So you can also pause the video and think about these questions. Now, you can actually leave a comment about how was this practice, what you thought about it. I'm actually very interested to read your comments. What was your answers? Like, how was it? So you can freely leave a comment. I'm very happy to read those. But what I actually thought about is that, like, it's getting like quite hot in here. It's getting hot in this sweatshirt, and I'm starting to sweat. And I'm realizing that what kind of problem is this? Like, it's snowing outside. Like, it's such a blessing that it's hot in here, that I'm sweating it and I'm not freezing. That I got a place to be warm at, and I don't have to worry about freezing to that outside. And how grateful that I am for that. And it can also help in these little problems also. Now I'm going to read you the rest of the chapter and then talk about it. Remember, we use categorization to see our endlessly changing reality as a false consistency. One of the main insights of the Buddha was to recognize that reality was continuously changing and that our suffering was the result of clinging to our idea that it is somewhat stable and consistent, like the idea of a me or a self. At first, let me talk about the first sentence. Remember, we use categorizations to see our endlessly changing reality as a false consistency. Now, basically, we categorize and think in ways of consistency because our minds like consistency, because it likes to predict what will happen next, and to predict, it needs consistency, and it really doesn't like inconsistency. For example, this is why it's very hard to leave a relationship that you know is bad for you, because your mind saw you going through that relationship for so long, and it doesn't want to be wrong. It doesn't want to be inconsistent and say that, yep, I was wrong for like 1 or 2 years. But the thing is that categorizations and our thoughts are pure abstractions. They are detached from reality. Categories don't exist out there in reality. For example, a group of stars, a constellation, like, it isn't out there in reality as a constellation. It is only a constellation, a group of stars in the mind's eye. Or another example, why is the nose part of the head, but the throat is not part of the head? You see, this is all conventional. We all just agree that this is the head and the other is the rest of the body. But in reality, they are not separate. We put the boundaries on it. In reality, this is all just one organism. So there is, on the one hand, reality as measured, as put into thoughts and words, as described. And then on the other hand, reality as it is, like non-dualistic. And the problem comes when we confuse reality as described, as categorized, with reality as it is. What we think about reality, our thoughts about reality, our images about reality, with reality as it is. Now, of course, these categorizations and separations are very useful for communication and to be in a society. I mean, they are essential to know that this is me and that is you and that is a tree, that is that, and to describe things. But we shouldn't take them for granted and think that they are the real stuff and that reality is made up of different things, and these things are like the building blocks of reality, and that they are the realest that real can get. Now, when we talk about the illusion of the self, this doesn't mean that you don't exist as an organism. This only means that your thoughts about yourself, your image of yourself, this abstraction, this ego is an illusion. It means that you're not a cut off part of your reality. You're not a different thing. You're not different from reality. You're not this isolated ego trapped in this bag of skin that is isolated by its skin and coming into contact with this scary external world. No, it's exactly that. It is your skin that connects you with everything else, and that you're just as a part of nature as everything else. Or more better said, you're an expression of nature, a function of reality or nature. And that you're interconnected with everything else, just as bees are interconnected with flowers, or how up go with down, black with white, left with right, outside with inside, light without dark. Something can't exist without nothing, and nothing can't exist without something. They go together, and just in the same way, you go together with everything else. Everything is just so interconnected with everything else. And as the rest of the paragraph said, everything is changing. Every single thing. You're not the person who clicked on this video. That was a different person. It doesn't exist anymore. The only person that really exists is you right now, and everything is in a constant change. This is when in Buddhism, when they talk about how reality is empty, they really are referring to how it's always changing, and that the form, you can't grab form. It's always changing. It's never permanent, and we try to put it into words, like fixed words. That's the problem. We try to put the ever-changing reality into the structure of fixed words, which is impossible. Now, another very interesting question to think about, which I'll leave you with, is who are you right now? If you lost all your memories, who are you right now without using your memories? Answer this: I am blank. What can you put there without using your memories? Now, I hope this video was helpful for you. If you have any questions, I do free one-on-one calls. You can send me an email and we'll contact each other. We'll have a video call. So thank you for watching this video. Hope it was helpful. Thank you for your presence. All the love towards you. Have a great day and goodbye.